Do not walk away from me. Ross, I am your friend for 13 years. Believe that I only want what's best for you. Yes. We've been through this so many times. We are not old by any means. But when you've got people like Mark Andrews, Robbie X, Morgan Webster backstage that are literally half our age, it's harder and harder to stay relevant. I lost my match tonight. But today you had the opportunity to step in the ring with, love him or hate him, one of the best wrestlers this country has ever produced. And instead of coming out there, busting your ass, and getting in the win column, you treat it as a joke. You have 3 matches, for God's sake! You treat it as a joke, Ross. In any other company in this country, maybe. But in this company, in pro wrestling, where wins and losses actually matter, it is an insult.
You see, it's not like I'm the only one who might have got a bit soft around the edges, because quite frankly, since you gave up on your dreams of going over to America for some woman, which ended in divorce anyway, let's be honest, you're not the half man you used to be. In fact, Stixx, all you're pretty much good for these days is pushing a pram around.
You should know better than to bring my family, especially my daughter, into this. If you do that again, I swear to Christ, I will slap the piss out of you.
There are no problems while you do that, mate. I'm sure your daughter Beth will be real proud.
I came out here tonight, yeah, I had a match and I lost, but at least I fucking tried. You get to go back to your cushy little teacher job. People like me don't have that benefit. I am a wrestler, damn it, and that's all I ever will be. You enjoy your job so much. You enjoy playing teacher and doing this for fun. Well, I've had it articulate, Ross. November 30th, chapter 16. Me versus you. And when I beat you, you are done. Not just in progress, but in all of wrestling. You don't wrestle anymore.
I admit that this is not my profession, but by God, this is my passion. I love wrestling. I love British wrestling just as much as you. And you don't get to throw out challenges without putting anything on your line yourself. So I'll tell you what, November 30th, chapter 16, yeah, I'll meet you one-on-one, Paul. I'll meet you one-on-one right here. But you put your career on the line as well. High stakes, all or nothing, career versus career. And then Paul, then we'll find out, then you'll find out why I'm better than you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a first for British wrestling and for Progress Wrestling. I'm your host, Callum Leslie, and for the very first and last time, I'm here with two men who will address the Progress Universe and British Wrestling in their final week of their career for one of them. 6 days from today, Stixx and RJ Singh will meet at Progress Chapter 16 in a career versus career match. One of them will no longer compete in British wrestling. I'm glad to have both of them on the line now, and for the first time they've agreed to speak to each other. I believe it's the first time that either of them have seen or spoken to each other since Chapter 15. And we will see what they have to say to each other. We've also seen, they will have seen what happened at Chapter 15, the confrontation that they had, the heated personal confrontation, and we will see where we develop from here. I have some questions of my own, along with questions from the British Wrestling press and you, the British Wrestling fans, to put to them. First thing we're going to do is, obviously, I've introduced both of them, Stixx and RJ Singh. We're going to give them both an opportunity to address each other as well as you, the fans. And we will see. We'll see where we go from there, and perhaps that will set the tone for the rest of this discussion. Since RJ Singh had the last word at Chapter 15, I think we'll probably start with you, Stixx. If you wanted to do just in a minute address RJ. I believe we had some brief technical problems there. We didn't actually hear what Stixx had to say. Apologies for that, Stixx. If you could perhaps share that with us again.
Sure. Okay. I was saying before, the one thing that I've been thinking about over the last few months is how it got to this point. You know, I came out at Chapter 15 as a friend, and I made that very clear. You walked away from me, and you forced me to make what we talk about backstage public. Obviously, there was some deep-seated feelings that hadn't come out before, and they did in front of a very loud crowd. But that's okay, because I want to thank you, Ross. Because one of the things you said at Chapter 15, you kind of woke me up. You said a few years ago, I wouldn't have lost to the pastor at Chapter 15. And you're right. So Chapter 16, what I want you to do, I don't want Ross, the school teacher. I don't want RJ Singh, the entertainer. I want RJ Singh, the best RJ Singh that you can bring. Because if I can't beat you, then as far as I'm concerned, I don't even deserve to be in British wrestling.
Thank you, Stixx. If we can now turn to RJ just to briefly address Stixx, and what you've seen so far watching that back?
That being the first time that I've watched that footage back, I'm gonna start with an honest apology. I'm gonna give that apology right to you now, Stixx. Watching that back and watching me stand in the ring and me bringing up your divorce and me bringing up your daughter, that was pretty low. I'm not proud of that, watching it back now. When you're in a situation like the kind we ended up in at Chapter 16 and tensions run high, and in the heat of the moment you kind of end up saying things that are pretty stupid. You kind of end up saying things that you regret, and looking back at that video just now, I've got to say I'm feeling regret over some of the things I said. I really had no intention of bringing up a lot of your personal history, and especially bringing your daughter Beth into this. But what I certainly won't apologise for is who I am and for the things I do in wrestling. I'm not ashamed of the things I do in wrestling. I'm not ashamed of how I've conducted myself in wrestling. And, you know, for you to come out and basically make it quite clear in my eyes, and it's quite clear from watching the video back, you seem to be looking down on me being that I'm part-time compared to your full-time, and somehow that makes your career in wrestling more worthwhile than mine. So, you know, you've already said, come Sunday, you know, you don't want Ross the school teacher and you don't want RJ Singh the insane, you just want the best RJ Singh. Well, I can guarantee you, Stixx, that come Sunday, that is exactly what you're going to get.
Thank you, RJ. In light of that apology from RJ Stixx, I don't know if you perhaps want to add to what you opened with, and perhaps that was my first question, was whether or not either of you regretted any of what was said at Chapter 15. RJ has obviously made quite clear that he does regret some of what he said. Would you perhaps want to address the same question?
As RJ just said, you know, there's some things you regret and there's some things you don't. Do I regret standing up to what I felt was a personal attack to my family? No, I don't. Do I regret hitting my best friend? Yes. Yes, I do. Because I think even in the most heated of situations, you can get around it by talking. Tensions run high. I've got a temper on me. You know, Ross has seen it. Progress fans have seen it. The heat of the moment, you know, I slapped him in the face, but I did warn him previous to that. Everyone saw that. So I'm sorry for hitting you, Ross. But I'm even more sorry that the situation has got to this point.
The situation has got to this point, Paul, because you've backed us into this corner. All right, you've backed us into this corner now, and you've forced us into a situation where we're at now, where it's now boiled down to career versus career.
But why?
You know, I know we talked about this before, and we talked about this backstage, and you said, you know, I need to treat this more seriously, and you got this sense that I was kind of winding down, I'd stopped caring, and you know, you made this public, you know, and now, like I said, I regret the personal things I said, but now you've kind of backed us both into this corner, and there's only one way out, and that's now the match that's coming Sunday. So,
hey.
If I can interject, gentlemen, just try and keep this from getting too heated at this stage. Stixx, if I can pick up on something that RJ said in his opening statement, you made mention of the fact that this is not what RJ Singh does for a living, and it is what you do for a living, and in perhaps making that part of this reason for this animosity. And a number of Progress fans have looked at that with slight confusion, given that you last year went on something of a crusade against the Screw Indie Wrestling faction, who in fact, you know, would subscribe to such views. Perhaps you could address that and maybe talk about that aspect of this dispute.
Yep. Okay, that's completely fair enough. I can understand the confusion. You see, last year I had somewhat of an epiphany, we'll say. I understood that I was putting myself under a lot of unnecessary pressure going into matches. The angry Stixx, you know, it isn't me. Okay, I started wrestling and I continue to do wrestling because I find it fun. But I find the physical aspect of it fun. I find the training hard for it aspect fun. What I don't do is go to the ring, with the pure intention almost of losing my match. Okay? Let me put it this way, Ross. You know, you're a teacher, obviously. Do you tell your students on sports day that it's not the winning that counts, it's the taking part that matters? You see, to me, that's a bunch of crap. If you're not in it to win it, then why even bother? Maybe that sports day mentality has gone to your head a little bit. You just want to be out in front of an audience, you know, have some fun, but who cares if you win or lose, right? To me, that's not what it's about. Last year, screw indie wrestling. You know, we're on Defend Indie Wrestling and looking down at all the younger guys who might not be full-time wrestlers, but none of them go to the ring with the pure intention of treating it as a joke. That was what I was standing up for. Not the fact that anyone's part-time or full-time or anything like that. It's the competition. And if you lose the competitive edge, then what's the point? There's always going to be someone snapping at your heels, ready to take your spot. As far as I'm concerned, I've got a whole school, okay, full of Joseph Connorses, Alex Gracie's, Jürgen Heimlichs, who would love to perform in front of the Progress audience and show what they can do. But they'd turn up with the sole intention of winning their match.
Well, let's talk about winning and losing, because that was something that, again, both of you mentioned that neither of you had perhaps the greatest record in Progress where wins and losses do matter. And in fact, the two of you have identical win-loss records, 3 wins and 7 losses each in Progress in both singles and tag team competition. So given that fact, given you both have had mixed success in Progress, particularly recently, limited success in winning matches, and I'll come to you first, RJ, what are you doing differently to make sure that you can pull out the win on Sunday?
I mean, going back to what Stixx just said, I don't know. I'm not really quite sure where he's got this impression that I was just there to muck around and have a joke and things like that. You know, sure. You know, when I went out against Michael Gilbert, you know, of course I went out there to win the match, but I went out there to entertain the fans at the same time. I think what Stixx was missing is that I was trying to spin this whole thing that Michael Gilbert's been pushing down our throats, that he's such a serious wrestler and he's no gimmicks and all that. And, you know, I was just kind of trying to turn that around on him a bit. People know I'm there to entertain. People, you know, come to see me because they know I'm gonna give them entertainment. And that's all I was doing on the night. Come Sunday, you know, if this is going to be my last match on Sunday, then you can absolutely bet that, you know, Stixx, you're going to have to be ready for everything I've got to throw at you, because I'm not holding back. You know, I know it's been a long time since you and me have actually stood across the ring as competitors, and I'm not the same guy who wrestled you all those years ago. You know, I'm a completely different being now. So, you know, Stixx, you just got to be ready, mate, because if you think I'm just going to go in there and just lay down for you and just, you know, you think, you know, you'll say you think I don't care and you think it's a joke, come Sunday, you will see exactly how serious I'm taking this.
Stixx, if we can come to you with the same question.
As far as you laying down for me, Ross, I'm going to make this clear. You have no choice. It's my career against your career, and I'm not going to be the one lying down for you.
I don't expect you to. I don't expect you to lie down for me. But don't think you're just going to walk away with this, as an easy one.
Oh no, I don't expect that at all. I'm making it very clear that I want the best RJ Singh to turn up. You see, 13 years, I've seen you go through the ranks just like you've seen me. I know what you're capable of, probably more than anybody. But what I'm saying is I want the RJ Singh, who was the first ever FWA flyweight champion. I want the RJ Singh, who was one half of the IPW tag team champions. I don't want you coming out with face paint, doing Sting's trademark moves just to get laughs. Sorry, Callum, what was your question again?
The question was, given that you've both had limited success recently in Progress, what are you doing to make sure that you can definitely pick up the win on Sunday?
Well, as I said earlier, and thanks Ross for the previous comment at chapter 15. I've gone back to basics, so to speak. I had a certain training regime that I would do a few years ago, and it served me very well. I've gone back to that because, fatherhood, and anyone watching this who has kids will attest to this, that especially with your first child, it's not easy. Okay, there's that transitional period where your whole life gets spun in the air and you've got to adapt. Okay, and whilst my other half Laura was pregnant, and the 9 months that we've had Beth, that's 18 months, that's nearly 2 years that I might have had my mind in a different place. But before that, I have my training regime. Like I said, it served me very well. And, that's what I've gone back to. Okay, I'm going to be bigger. I'm going to be faster. I'm going to be stronger. I'm going to be more headstrong up here. And I'm not going down this Sunday.
Okay, well, we have a number of questions from the British wrestling media that I'd now like to turn to. And if we can try and keep answers relatively brief, because we've got a lot of questions, a lot of people interested in this. Obviously, this has generated interest from across all sections of British wrestling and around the world. The first question is from Brian Elliott, the editor of Fighting Spirit magazine. Looking back at your careers, and obviously for one of you, this is the last week of your career, so perhaps turning slightly away from this match for a second and looking back on your careers, can you give an example, both of you, from your early days and today that shows how far the British wrestling business has come since then? RJ, if we can come to you first.
Looking back, me and Stixx both came in around 2001, tail end of 2001, 2002. Back then, sort of the one of the major names, apart from All Star, which was still running very successfully as a touring company, FWA, in one of its original incarnations, was beginning to build speed. It was one of sort of the promotions that began to generate a bit of an internet buzz, and following the ECW style, was started to get sort of the former ECW, WCW guys over to do shows over here as well. So, and I think that kind of blueprinted what would later become, and the kind of the period we're going through now, where you've got several successful companies running across the country in different places. And I think seeing that kind of very early blueprint that the FWA set all those years ago, back then when we first started, and when we came up through the FWA training school, I think that's kind of the major change that I've seen over those years.
Stixx?
You know what? I can't disagree with anything Ross just said. Back when we first started, I remember a particular time that we went up to Sheffield for the first time. It was actually the first time we met, Chris Travis, El Ligero, and a lot of the Northern wrestlers. And we didn't actually know it at the time, but we were actually held in quite high regard because we came from the FWA school, and the FWA had such a buzz around it at the time. We were just new wrestlers, maybe a year in. But now it seems that there's a a hot wrestling company in nearly every major town in the country, and even the not so major towns. Really, it's amazing what it's turned into, because back when we first started, it was FWA, All Star, and various smaller places. But now, I lose count of how many top places there are, that you can work for around the country, and not just the companies, but the training schools as well. We had to travel. Luckily, we trained in Finsbury Park, and we both lived either in or near to London. But had that school not been there, the closest one was, as far as FWA is concerned, was Portsmouth. And I remember, myself, Ross, and a few others used to go down to Portsmouth, quite a few times, to get some good training and some good grounding in. But now it seems you can just go down the street and find a good school, that you can learn and really thrive in. So same answer, really.
Thank you both. The next question comes from Sean Radican from Pro Wrestling Torch. And I think this is a question that quite a few fans have asked as well, and we'll want you both to address. In wrestling, there are often career versus career matches, and wrestlers often put their careers on the line, but the loser rarely stays retired. What makes this different, and what will prevent you becoming just another Terry Funk?
I've seen Terry Funk, and as much as I respect the man, he did pass his prime many years ago, and I think the first time I met him, it was quite painful watching him walking around, and I've got to be honest, I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to be the guy who, is broken down way beyond his time. If I lose on Sunday, I don't know if I'll have it in me to ever come back to wrestling. And wrestling is something I've loved from childhood. And if I can't be in the ring, I don't know if I can be around wrestling at all.
Stixx, the same question to you.
I have a particular motivation, I guess. You hear a lot of wrestlers say about how their bodies are so broken down that they can't play with their kids anymore, and really be there for their kids as their kids grow up. As Ross said, I don't want to be that guy, but I was thinking about this the other day, and how you mentioned about, career-ending matches. As far as I'm aware, please someone correct me if I'm wrong, there's only ever been one other match that I can remember where both men's career were on the line. It's normally one person's, and you see that guy, fight like a dog all the way through the match, because he knows, it's bigger than a championship, it's bigger than, main eventing a show. This Sunday is going to be two people with that mentality, and to be quite honest, I'm actually quite scared about how far both of us are willing to go to prove the points that we want to prove.
I think that's something that we'll come back to in one of the fan questions, but moving on through the media questions. This one comes in from TJ Hawk of 411 Mania. As you prepare for the possibility of your professional wrestling career ending next week, what's the one decision or aspect of your career that you could go back and change if you would? And Stixx, we'll start with you.
Ooh. Can I do a life one as well?
For sure. Anything that you won't have the chance to go back and change as a result of losing this match on Sunday.
Well, I think one of the main things that kind of stalled my career in the early days was, as Ross mentioned at chapter 15, was my previous marriage.
Told you that.
I know you told me at the time, and I didn't listen. Everyone did. You know, I learned from my mistakes. Thank you very much. Teacher in life as well, it seems. When I moved to Nottingham, before said lady, there wasn't really much going on up here as far as a wrestling scene. And almost, 6 months after I moved, the London scene and around it just exploded with so many companies. And I always felt that I maybe missed out on some potential big shows and opportunities because I made that jump to the Midlands. And obviously I don't drive, so it was always hard to get down there for shows that were maybe a bit far away. But I think that one is my biggest regret. Not just in life. You marry the wrong partner, you live and learn, of course. But by moving to a different part of the country, I think I took a few years off the career. That could have maybe become something that it has a lot sooner, if that makes sense.
Right. Sorry, man, I just got to. This is what annoys me about you, Paul, man. Like, you should have been doing Survivor Series. That's the fact of the truth. You should have been in the big leagues years ago. And you kind of had the gall to tell me I need to take this more seriously. If you'd really gone for this and treated wrestling as seriously as you claim, man, you should have been in the big leagues. So, but sorry, that was my interruption.
My issue is the fact that it's almost like we switched places. Okay, I was there first, not taking it seriously, as you just claimed. And you were the one getting all the title opportunities, all the big shows. How can you sit there and say that you were right when now you're the one who's in my position?
That's a fair question, RJ. As if you claim that Stixx didn't take it as seriously as he should have done and made that mistake, do you feel you are repeating that mistake in the way that you're treating wrestling right now?
This is kind of rich. This whole "you're not taking it seriously" thing that Stixx likes to keep bringing up here was, sorry, did I miss like the last month where I've just appeared on TV multiple times representing British wrestling, especially as part of TNA Boot Camp? Are we just forgetting that now? The fact that I've just fought tooth and nail to become the IPW All England champion, I'm sorry, but if that's not taking it seriously, I don't know what it is. Yeah, I said again, my match with Mike Gilbert, I was simply going out to entertain as well, as get a victory. And all right, maybe I was wrong in that I thought I could do both, but that's who I am. All right, I'm there to entertain. I really am. I'm there to entertain the crowd as well as give them the best match I can have. So, yeah.
To be fair to Stixx, though, RJ, if I can interject, the Michael Gilbert match wasn't the first time you had gone down the entertainment route in Progress, thinking back to Sing Dango at Chapter 7, to you teaming with Grado at Chapter 9. This has been something which has perhaps happened for you more than often, that you've decided to go for the entertainment rather than perhaps taking it as seriously as Stixx might or taking it seriously in the way that Stixx might suggest.
Well, tagging with Grado, that wasn't my choice. That was, that was who our original partner, Danny Garnell, was injured at the time, so we had to have a replacement, and that replacement just happened to be, Grado. So I can't control what he was doing. If he, Grado's Grado. You can't change him and control him, so that's not really my fault. And yeah, I did the Sing Dango thing, and that was a great laugh and all that. But I think, you watched the match I then had with Danny. It was a very competitive match, so I wasn't mucking about at that point, So.
If I can, very. Oh, sorry, Stixx.
The 2010 would have gone to America with TNA. You wouldn't have. Sure, you had the show, but you didn't get picked in the final 6. The RJ Singh from 2010 would have done just that. And I'm wondering if this IPW title win that you've recently had is a result of our little situation. Maybe it's got into your head, and you are now finally trying to take things as seriously as you did before. Congratulations on your title win, by the way.
Thank you.
RJ, if I can just address the question that we were discussing to you briefly, is there anything in your career that you will look back on? If this is the end of your career on Sunday, is there anything you'll look back on and wish you could have changed?
For the most part, no. You know, I've through wrestling, I've got to live out so many things that I wouldn't have done if I hadn't been a wrestler. The people I've met, being able to travel all up and down the country, there's very little I'd change about that. You know, my friendships with people, you know, even the history I have with Stixx, you know, I wouldn't change that for the world. But I perhaps would have pushed myself a little bit harder to get myself out into Europe a bit more, and travel around, do, you know, wrestling out in Europe, even out in the States, not paying for myself, obviously. But you know, yeah, I think I would have travelled a bit further out of England a bit more, if, you know, if I'd pushed that a bit harder. So.
Okay, well, if we can move on to the next question, which is coming from Charmin Morris at Brit Dress Chat. If you had to pinpoint a turning point in each other's careers where you feel like the moment at which the other perhaps went down the wrong path in achieving, because you've both said this evening and previously that you feel like the other could have achieved more in their careers, and if we can perhaps get away from talking about the personal, if we can talk about perhaps a moment in the wrestling side of things, a match, an event, or an attitude that you saw in a match in the other that really pinpointed for you where this went wrong and where you started coming into conflict with each other. And RJ, we'll start with you.
I you know, and this really hurts to say this, but you know, I've got to be honest, Stixx. Like, since the minute you walked through Progress's doors, I think you've been a bit of a letdown, and I know that sounds horrible. You know, watching you back, like Lion Kid losing to guys like Pasta, like, but he's, you know, I'm not saying they're bad wrestlers, but you know, you're so much better, and I think you should have stormed into Progress and you should have wiped the floor with everyone, and that's just a fact. You should have done the stick, like I said, Stixx 4 years ago just would have, you know, completely barreled through everyone at Progress, and you've not lived up to the, at that time, quite deserving hype you've had. And I think, you know, I just don't think, maybe perhaps up until now, where you finally got some kind of focus, and even if that focus has to be me, you finally look like you got your head in the game. So,
I'm sorry, what? Have you ever challenged for a title in Progress, Ross?
No.
No, you haven't. Okay, to say that I am a letdown in Progress, I made it to the title match. Sure, I didn't win, but I was that close. And even Rampage Brown will attest to that. I went through the entire Screw Indie faction, and those guys, okay, they're focused, they're pros, they're full-time. They're not easy to beat. To say that I'm a letdown when you haven't achieved even half of what I've achieved in Progress is a joke.
Stixx, if I can perhaps return you to the question, which was, what was the turning point that you saw in RJ's career where he perhaps didn't take it seriously, as you would put it?
You know what? You might be able to help me out here, Callum. What was the chapter where Ross fought his understudy, Darryl Allen?
Chapter 5, January 2013.
The 5, yeah. That was the turning point in my eyes. You see, Ross, you've been going on about how I would have beaten the Pasta. You know, I should have beaten Lion Kid, you know, and how I've been a letdown. You lost to the guy that was your understudy. Okay, you taught him everything he knew, and you lost. How does that work? So I go back to 2010 and say that the RJ Singh of 2010 would have, just like that, come up with a new trick that you didn't teach your understudy, and you would have won that match. And I think that was the turning point for you. You realised that the younger generation were maybe just a little bit quicker, a little bit more agile, and had it in here just a little bit more than you do now.
RJ, since Stixx responded to what you said about him coming into Progress, do you want to respond to that?
Yeah, I mean, what you say, I mean, I can't. I'm not going to sit here and barefaced, deny that I got beat or that it was unfair. I mean, if you watch Chapter 5, I had a really competitive match with Daryl, who, by the way, understudy that, if you could possibly be a bit more insulting, Paul, that'd be great. Daryl's never been my understudy. Daryl's been a training partner. He's been my tag partner, and he was thoroughly deserving. Should I have lost that match to him? Probably not. No, but I'm not gonna then brag on Daryl for not doing what he needed to do. And at the time, he really needed a one in the win column, and he got the win he deserved. So I don't think that makes me any less. I think that makes him a really a fierce competitor. But I don't see that as any, to look on anything less on myself.
Okay, if we can move on to the next question, which has come in from Rob McNichol from the Daily Mirror. Considering how you're both feeling right now, but thinking about it in the cold light of day as well, and perhaps putting the personals aside from it, if you win, how do you think you will feel knowing that you ended the career of a fellow professional wrestler? And we'll go to the Stixx first. Stixx, will come to you on that.
I guess I'll find out on the day.
RJ?
I will take no pleasure whatsoever, and I honestly mean that, ending Stixx's career of 13-odd years. I absolutely take no pleasure in that, and I take no pleasure in taking the career away from someone who I've treated like a brother for 12 of those 13 years. But I'll say again, Paul, you've put us in this corner, you've put us in this position, and I'm not backing down, but I will take no pleasure in seeing your career out on Sunday.
Okay, I think we'll just move on from that one. The last question we have from the media is from Dave Bradshaw of British Wrestling Roundup, who was at the show in September and saw the confrontation firsthand. Stixx implied at the September show that throughout their careers, RJ's achievements often received more recognition than his own. Recognition aside, which of you do you believe has actually achieved more in his career? RJ, we'll start with you.
I mean, I'm really not going to speak for what Stixx has or what he believes he's achieved. I know what I've achieved, and I think I can be really damn proud of what I've achieved, especially in the last couple of years. This year especially has been phenomenal for me. First half of the year and only just recently, I was the Future Pro Wrestling champion. As I said, recently won the IPW All England Championship. Got to wrestle one of my heroes in Tatanka early this year, and got told by him, what a great wrestler he thought I was. And I think, the fact that I've and I say this without any, I'm not being big-headed, I'm just saying it as a fact because it's true. I've managed to get my name out into households in these last couple of months. I managed to feature on TV quite a lot. So I'd say, from my standpoint, RJ Singh is a more recognisable name. So,
Stixx, your thoughts on that, and your opinion on which of the two of you think has achieved more?
Well, I guess you've got to ask what you mean by achieved. I might not have been on TV recently, Ross. What I do have, and what I'm very proud of, is one of the top wrestling training schools in this country. Every day I can go to my school and know for a fact that I am nurturing the future of British wrestling. You haven't achieved anything like that. And to me, as far as my, let's say, input into British wrestling, maybe that's more important than getting your face on TV for 15 minutes. But, Callum, I want to go on record right now and say I have and will always be the biggest RJ Singh fan. Every achievement that RJ has had, I've been very proud. You know, we're like brothers. You know, brothers, you know, sometimes a little jealousy rears its ugly head. But aside from that, we're nothing but happy for each other. Which is why I said before about over the last few months, I just can't believe it's actually come to this. But it has. And now one of us has got to go.
Is it too late, really, for the two of you? Because, you know, you said a lot of things, you got very heated, and you made this very personal, and you made this stipulation. Stixx, you threw out the challenge, and RJ threw it back, that you would both put your careers on the line. But in the cold light of day, you've both sat here and said that you regret a lot of what was said, that you still care very much about each other and have a lot of respect for each other. Is it not too late for the two of you to pull back from this?
You want to go first?
I'll tell you why we're not backing away from this. I'll tell you why I'm not backing away from this. I need to prove to you, Stixx, I need to prove to all the Progress fans who are out there watching this now, I need to prove I'm still relevant. And you said that right to my face at the Chapter 16. You said, look at all these new guys, it's getting harder and harder to stay relevant. And I've got to be honest, I'd be lying if I didn't sit here right now and tell you that doesn't play on my mind, because these last few years, you know, I see these grey hairs, they're coming. I look at the calendar every year, I'm getting older, and I see younger and younger guys coming into wrestling. And I'm sitting here now thinking, when it's all done, am I going to be remembered? So I need to do something big. And I need to prove to everybody. I need to prove to all the Progress fans. I need to prove to you. I need to prove to everybody watching. I need to prove to all of British wrestling that I am still relevant. And while it kills me, Paul, that it's got to be you who, unfortunately, I've got to prove that point to and make that point about. I've got to make that point. And for that reason, I'm not backing down.
Stixx?
Well, firstly, I think anyone that knows either me or Russ on a personal level will tell you that we're just too pig-headed to back down. Okay, it's not in our attitude when a task is at hand. You know, we throw ourselves full force into that task, which is the main reason why I've been trying to get through to Russ. You know, that maybe the mentality has changed a little bit recently. See, I said from the beginning that all I want is the best for my friend. I want him to show the audience the best RJ Singh all the time, every time. But as Ross said, it's about staying relevant. You brought up our win-loss records, Callum. We both got a point to prove. And unfortunately, we've got to prove that against each other.
Okay, if we can move on to the questions that have come in from fans on Facebook and Twitter, and we'll start with Peter. how does the feeling going into Sunday compare to other big matches in your career? And is your motivation more to preserve your own career or to end the career of the other? And on that first part of the question, comparing it to other big matches in your career, I'd ask you both to maybe give us an example of one of the biggest matches of your career to date and how this perhaps compares.
I guess, I think back to some of the biggest matches I've had. Well, I think maybe back to British Uprising 3, where I wrestled in the opening match of the three-way dance. It was called the Next Generation Three-Way Dance at the Coventry Sky Dome. Back then that was a feeling I'd never felt that way before, knowing I was going out in front of a huge crowd and it was such a big show, and I was absolutely in knots inside, and that almost sick to my stomach, out of sheer excitement and nervousness, and then I zip forward to earlier this year where I wrestled Tatanka, and I went out on adrenaline, a feeling of elation, excitement. It's completely opposite. Coming into Sunday, I can't even predict how I'm going to feel before we head out on Sunday. I can't predict how I'm going to feel when I'm out in the ring, and I can't even imagine how I'm going to feel at the conclusion of this match, whichever way it goes, whichever way the axe falls on this match. But I know that I will go out and I will give everything I've got. I will be in for the fight of my life, and I think it's going to be a moment. Myself, Stixx, and all of Progress and British Wrestling, I think it's going to be a moment we're all going to remember.
Stixx?
It's funny Ross brought up that three-way, because I remember being backstage for that match and giving you a hug the moment before you walked out of the curtain and telling you that I was proud of you. We were both sitting ringside at British Uprising 1, the original three-way. We saw them tear the house down, and I know the kind of pressure that you put yourself under in that match. And you did yourself proud. You did British wrestling proud that night. I had my Coventry Sky Dome moment the following year when, I won't go through everyone in the match, but standing opposite the ring against Mick Foley was spine tingling. Seeing him walk down the aisle, the hairs all over my body were just standing up on end. Going into that match, me and Ross both grew up watching the Attitude Era. If it wasn't Rock or Austin or maybe The Undertaker, it was Mick Foley. How do you get bigger than that? And in the following years, I've had matches with your Davey Richardses, your Kevin Steens, your CZW wrestlers, all the independent American wrestlers. And there's never been any nerves, there's never been any worry, because I always thought that if I could hang with Mick Foley, how do you top that? But I don't mind admitting right now that leading up to Sunday, I've got something in my stomach that I haven't felt in a very long time. I don't want to say I'm scared, because I'd like to think that I'm not scared of anything. But I don't like it.
Well, we have one final question that's come in on Twitter from Curly Kane, which is a question for both men. and it's something you've both touched on in talking about the match and how the match is going to go on Sunday. I've talked about wanting to be the best version of yourselves to face the other. Is there any length you won't go to save your career? RJ, if we can come to you first.
You know, I don't know. That's kind of an odd question. I guess what Curly Kane wants to know is, am I going to wrap something like a chair around Paul's head come Sunday? You know, it's not that kind of match. On Sunday, you will see the realest and the truest RJ Singh you will ever see. You will see me at my very best. I will fight tooth and nail with everything I've got to win that match. As far as how far I'm prepared to go, that just remains to be seen come Sunday.
Stixx, if we can come to you with the same question.
I think anyone who has followed our careers over the past 13 years, they've seen us on both sides of the fence, if you'd like to call it that. You know, they've seen us play the bad guy, they've seen us play the good guy. Everyone knows that we both know how to bend the rules. And we know how to break the rules. And equally, we know how to stick to the rules. But progress has never been about that. Progress has always been about competition. So I promise you right now, I'm not going to use any underhand tactics. I'm not going to go out of my way to cheat you out of a victory, because if I do that, then the victory is, I'm cheating myself. I'm going to go out there to prove once and for all who the better man is.
Well, on that note, as we come to a close of this evening's presentation, and we have a short video about the match for you to watch at the end of this broadcast, but I'd like to thank both RJ Singh and Stixx for taking part in this discussion this evening. I'd like to thank everyone who sent in questions, all the media and all the fans. I'm sorry we couldn't get to more of the fan questions. Some of them were superseded by things that were discussed earlier in the broadcast, but we do appreciate all of them and all of you watching. And on a personal level, I'd like to thank you both. If it is the last time, the last week of your careers, I'd like to thank you both for your contribution to British wrestling, and you will both be remembered no matter what the outcome on Sunday, I believe, as true heroes of the British wrestling scene. As this will be probably the last time you see or speak to each other before the match on Sunday, I'd like to finally offer you one last chance to say anything to each other that you have left to say, and anything you have going into Sunday.
You know, Paul, I no doubt whatever happens on Sunday, this is going to carry on into another conversation between you and me that perhaps we need to have away from this bubble that is wrestling, and that's something that I think you and me are going to have to face when we come to it. But I want you to know, before we head into Sunday, I have the utmost respect for you as a wrestler. We both said it. We're friends. We're brothers in wrestling. But you will find out on Sunday how hard I am prepared to fight. You told me back at chapter 16. You said the word "Sing is King" has just become a cheap slogan that I slapped on merchandise, and I want you to know right now that the phrase "Sing is King" is more than that, Stixx. It's way more than that. using the phrase "Singh is king" is my way of proving my self-belief of how good I know deep down I am and I can be, and the potential that I have to be one of the best in British wrestling. And I promise you, I absolutely promise you, come Sunday, you are going to see the absolute best of RJ Singh, and you will find out what Singh is king truly means.
This is getting too much for me. I'll see you Sunday, mate.
Stixx, okay, well, I think that brings this to an end for this evening. Thank you to both of you for taking part once again. As I said, we do have a short video for the match for you to watch in a second, but you can continue the conversation on Twitter with the hashtag career versus career, obviously at @thisis_progress, and myself at CLeslie92 or at Answer the10. And I will see you all on Sunday in the Electric Ballroom for what will surely be one of the most important matches in Progress history. Thank you very much for watching.
Lovely roll up and a bridge. That's all. Just going to strap on the ethnic submission. We've seen him win several matches with this. Reversed by Darrell Allen. The cover. Oh no, up to the second rope again. And this time he nails it. Fantastic tornado DDT. Erroneously down. Massive leaping DDT. That's all. A Rampage. He's going for it. Power driver. To the side of the head. Michinoku driver. That's it. Over the package pile driver. He hits it. He hits it on Stixx. Stixx is eliminated. What?
I don't know why. It doesn't even matter how hard you try. Keep that in mind.
Ross, I am your friend for 13 years. Believe that I only want what's best for you. 13 years ago, Ross, since the first time we walked into a wrestling school just down the road in Frisbee Park, we've been best friends. We've been through everything. I've been through everything together. Not just in wrestling, all our highs and the lows in our personal life as well. You're the best man in my way too. We are not old by any means. But when you've got people like Mark Andrews, Robbie X, Morgan Webster backstage that are literally half our age, it's harder and harder to stay relevant. I lost my match tonight, but today you had the opportunity to step in the ring with loving or hating one of the best wrestlers this country has ever produced. As a joke class. In any other company in this country, maybe. But in this company, a pro wrestler wins and losses actually matter. It is an insult. I came out here tonight, yeah, I had a match and I lost. But at least I fucking tried. You get to go back to a cushy little teacher job. People like me don't have that benefit. You enjoy your job so much. You enjoy playing teacher and doing this for fun. Well, I've had it on TV, Ross. November 30th, chapter 16. Me versus you. And when I beat you, you are done. Not just in progress, but in all of wrestling. You don't wrestle anymore.
I admit that this is not my profession, but by God, this is my passion. I love wrestling. I love British wrestling just as much as you. And you don't get to the right changes without putting anything on your line yourself. So I'll tell you what. November 30th, chapter 16. I'll meet you one-on-one, Paul. I'll meet you one-on-one right here. But you put your career on the line as well. High stakes. All or nothing. Career versus career. And then, Paul, then we'll find out. Then you'll find out why I'm better than you.
But in the end, it doesn't even matter.